Arfield, what a bully! Scott Arfield! He's been threatening that recently, and all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end.
Burnley win the next ball. It's Rory now. On the outside, decent.
Barnes! He's got it! Ashley Barnes with it! What a cross from Rory! And there was Ashley Barnes! And Burnley leading the derby.
Obviously quickly finds Benson in space at the byline. Can Burnley get a goal here? Back for Brownell. Saved by the keeper.
Burnley won it to the end. That is magnificent. They deserve that.
On it by Fulton Teller. Off for a hat-trick.
He's got it. Hat-trick for Nathan Teller. Oh, he's on fire at the minute. 3-0 Burnley. It's Nathan Teller's day. And Burnley are 3 up here. Fantastic derby.
Here's Benson. Can he go on the outside? Comes inside.
Top shot. Oh, what a goal. Manuel Benson once more. That is top class. Burnley have done it. Fantastic. Clarets deserve the championship title. They've been the best side throughout the campaign. Burnley have won the second tier. What a fantastic achievement. The players have been magnificent.
Yes, hello everyone and welcome along to the latest episode of the TurfCast podcast full-time show as we look back on what was not the most entertaining game against Oxford United down at the Kassam Stadium. And me and the boys were just saying off air, we're not sure how we're going to pad this out to an hour. And hopefully we don't send you all asleep while we are doing it as well, like the teams did yesterday, which I said yesterday on Twitter, like, if you want to watch the highlights, maybe do that if you want to fall asleep. And I was like, oh, you're so negative. Well, I'm just saying, like, the game was pretty shit. That's all I've said. No negativity there from me. But it's good to see the lads as well. As you can see, we've got Vizzy, we've got Andrew, and we've got Connor as well. How are we doing, boys?
All good, pal.
Yep, all good.
Yeah,
not bad. Let's get into it pretty early. Liam, I'll start with you. Yeah, unfortunately, Clark and Blue 1882. Sam ran today, which is probably a good thing because I think he would have spontaneously combust. He's skydiving in Lancaster or something today, which is the most random thing in the world.
That sounds like a complete lie. That I'm sorry.
It might be as well, to be fair, mate. I'm obviously too trusting. I'll have to look on his Instagram later, see if he sticks any pictures up that will confirm or deny that. I'm obviously too trusting. But Scott O'Sullivan does say half decent lineup tonight. I think what you'll find, Scott, is it is a half decent lineup every single night. But yeah, keep your comments in. We'll say hello in a bit. Let's get straight into it. Liam, I will start with you. Thoughts on yesterday's game, please. And it was interesting because I did see your Instagram story post where you put something like, just finished watching the Oxford game. That's 90 minutes of my life I'll never get back. I don't want to talk about it. And here you are talking about it. So, fingers crossed.
I got it right here, actually, in front of you. It's just a picture of me with a quote that Oxford game didn't happen and we'll never talk about it. And, I'm here because I just kind of I'm bored, I think. Look, the game yesterday was one of those typical championship games where you're basically in full control of the game against a side which will drop deep and hope to just frustrate the life out of you. And that is what they did. And we saw this quite a lot the last time we were back in the championship under Vincent Kompany, early days. We had many games just like this, which we are playing against a side that were just drop deep, saying, try your best, mate, try and pick us down. Cardiff away, Stoke at home, Hull at home, Luton at home, whatever away again there was as well alongside that. Like Preston away, like so many times that you know that we're the better team. They know we're the better team. So they just say, have a go at us. And that's what happened. Yeah. And I don't really get some of the reaction by some of the fans that it's like, look, sometimes it's like this in football. You don't win every single game. And even if you're the better of the two sides, you don't win every game of football. And unfortunately, it was just one of them. You know, some performances by some players people may talk about, which I'm sure we will do later on. However, all around, it's just a game of football that we just didn't take our chances. And that's pretty much all that can really be said. Like, I think they had a 15-minute spell in the second half. And realistically, they weren't really in the game at all. So I'm not too bothered really all around. And I don't know, in a week's time, or basically the second we play against Plymouth on Tuesday, we'll forget that game ever happened. So that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I'd have forgot it happened already. If it weren't for running TurfCast, I probably would have done already. But I just want to quickly give a massive shout out to Milltown Dingle, who has renewed his membership and has become a member for 2 months. And he says it was always going to be a tricky one at Oxford. And it was, because they were always going to sit back. I completely agree with Liam's sort of like thoughts on the game. Oxford simply just said, we're going to sit back. Now you have to break us down. But it's the onus is on us to break them down. And I did say yesterday in the 60-second review and the full-time reaction that we didn't create enough, and people have come back at me and said, well, actually, we had 2 quite decent chances. And yeah, we did. And the XG, I have been told by the XG nerds, was higher than it was against Portsmouth, which is fair enough. I can understand why it was higher than it was against Portsmouth. But for 75% possession, I personally feel we should have created more than the chances that we did. I just felt like we were frustrated, like Liam says, by Oxford. Just speaking on our performance, I don't think we moved the ball quick enough. We did a lot of cross-field passes, which obviously I understand. We're trying to move Oxford from one side of the pitch to the other and then create gaps. And it did sometimes create some openings, but obviously we didn't score from it. And we're still doing the same thing in the 87th and 89th.
A caveat to the XG, that Hutonji chance, the one that it kind of like pinged to him like 10 minutes before the end of the game. Like the XG in that's like 0.63, which like that's probably a big reason why it's really high. Or beyond that, it was like below 1.
I mean,
so like that chance from Hutonji, it really pinged to him. I don't even say that's even a chance. Like he barely even had any time to even react to the ball. So I do agree with that, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I don't particularly go looking at these. You'll have to tell me the website you use later, Liam. But I don't particularly go looking at these sort of things. But when someone comes at me on Twitter saying, oh, the XG was better, it was a better performance than it was against Portsmouth, that sort of stuff is good to know. But yeah, Twin Cities Clarets does agree with you. He says a lot of the XG was that Hontondra chance. So yeah, that's fair enough. But obviously, Lyle's chance, when I saw it from the away end, looked like it was a bit of a snapshot. But quickly looking at it on the highlights, probably should have done better with it. And obviously, Sarmiento had a similar sort of chance as well, where he's in the box from a pullback. But yeah, I don't feel we created enough, is my point from what I'm saying. For the 75% possession against a team like Oxford, I know people don't like it when people say that sort of phrase. I just feel like we should be creating more. Anyway, that's you being clipped.
Yeah, 100%. Hopefully there's no Oxford fans watching. That's my thoughts on the game. Connor, what do you think about that game, please, mate?
It was a painful watch, I have to say. One thing I'd say is that you've played Portsmouth and Oxford, and both teams have sat back and tried to just catch us on the break. And I think teams have worked out that's probably the best way to play against us now. I mean, Oxford aren't going to play against us out from the back. That's a given. Portsmouth nearly got a point off us from just waiting for us to overcommit and just send the ball long, and it eventually it worked for them. But I think Oxford had the same sort of plan of just sitting back and hoping that they could catch us on the break, which you can't. I mean, the budget between Burnley and Oxford is ridiculous, so they are always going to do that against teams like us and Leeds. So I'm not like overly shocked that we didn't score, because they were always going to put 10 men behind the ball and try and catch us on the break. So as painful as it was, I think that a lot of people have like obviously it's a frustrating result because you want to win every game, but when we don't win games, especially like I noticed yesterday, there was like such a backlash on social media, especially Twitter, because it was just like all the players were so poor. And stuff. I don't think we were actually poor. I think it's just Oxford defended well, they minimalised how many chances we could have got, and they got a good point in the end of it, and we're left frustrated. But I'm not shocked, because loads of teams are going to do this against us. Like I expect Plymouth to do it against us on Tuesday, so I think it'll be the next few games against the lower half teams. They're 100% going to do that every day of the week, because it's the best way of getting a point against us.
Yeah, that is a worry for me now, that we have 2 games against teams also that are down there. They've seen the blueprint. Having said that, what I will say is I don't necessarily agree that Portsmouth did just sit back against us. They did step onto us and tried to press us. In possession, they probably weren't stepping onto us as much, but out of possession, they were. Oxford did just sit back. And I do worry now that the 2 teams that have just sat back, Blackburn and Oxford, have both got what they wanted from that. And it is a little bit of a worry. We do need to learn to move the ball quicker. But as Sui says, Leeds in that game scored 2 or so due to their attacking options. And Twin Cities Clarets says Is the lack of high-quality chances primarily a striker issue, in brackets Foster, lack of attacking effort from midfield, or both equally? I personally think it's probably a bit of both, but I'd lean more towards midfield. I mean, we'll get into individuals and stuff in a bit, which I'm sure is another thing I've been criticised for, but that's the nature of the beast when you do stuff like this, isn't it, online? I don't particularly like the midfield three as it was yesterday, but again, I'm sure we'll get into that. But before we do, Andrew, just want to quickly get your thoughts on yesterday's game, please, mate, and what you thought about the stalemate at the Kassam.
Yeah, it were a very dull game, weren't it? There weren't a lot to, like you said, there's not really a lot to shout about. I think slow in possession. We did have a couple of chances, but we just weren't good enough to take them at the time. It just seemed like it was a very, I don't know about you lads, but it felt like a pre-season friendly at times with how flat everything just seemed to be, and there didn't seem to be any urgency. And like I say, Oxford, no disrespect to them, they're a team that we all expect to be down the bottom end of the league at the end of the season, and we're a team that we all expect to be at the top end of the league at the end of the season. And I think they've only conceded 1 goal at home. They're unbeaten at home so far this season, so they're still a good side. But they exactly had the game plan of what to do to stop us. And like you said, Joe, it's up to us to break them down, and we just couldn't do it yesterday. But I'll keep emphasising it because it keeps annoying me, the amount of negativity at the minute. We're only 7 games into the season. These lads haven't played together for too long. It needs to click. It'll click at some point, but we need to learn how to break teams down.
Yeah, it's an interesting point there where you said it felt like a pre-season friendly. Twin Cities Claret has said somehow weirdly reminiscent of the Cadiz friendly. And it's weird that the guy
similar
next to me did. What, sorry?
Similar stadium.
Yeah, similar stadium. Yeah. And the guy next to me at one point did say that it felt like a pre-season friendly as well. So you're not the only one there, Andrew. Go on, Liam. Do you want to say something?
No, you can go to the next point. Don't worry. I just want to highlight the stadium just missing half a stand. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was weird, mate. And I actually think I've already done the pre-game show with the Plymouth fan ready for Tuesday, and I did mention to him that I actually quite liked the Kassam Stadium. And he's like, "What are you on about? He's only had 3 stands, and it's absolutely atrocious." Other than the big gaping hole, it was actually an okay stand. It just looked a little tired. There was one point where I literally had to dodge a cobweb on the way in through the turnstile. So it does need a bit of a dust and a bit of a paint. There was a lot of mud on the floor. Still some social distancing signs on the floor as well. It's just a little tired more than anything, but I actually didn't mind it. I just want to pick up on Andrew's point.
We dodge cobwebs every week on turf, so it's nothing to do with Kassam. That's just
to be fair. Innit? There's not so many at Family Stand. If there is, I haven't seen them, but I tend to get on quite late and just rush into my seat after having a few beers in what's it called, the fan zone. But anyway, I just want to pick up on Andrew's point and ask you guys about it, Connor. I'll start with you. We are looking, and a few people have said this on Twitter, and thankfully I missed a lot of the negativity on Twitter yesterday, which I think was good for my own sanity, my own mental health, because I was driving back. And I think from now on, I will always drive there and not sit on the coach or the train looking at Twitter, or just stay away from Twitter for a few hours if I'm driving home, if I don't manage to get to the game or it's a home game. But there has been some good points raised. Somebody did say in the chat earlier, I'm not going to scroll up and look for it, that we aren't scoring too many goals. Now, obviously, some people will sit there and caveat with the point of, I think we're the second or third. I don't know what we are at the minute, but we were before this game the joint highest scorers in the league. But obviously, 9 of them goals came in the first 2. So I don't know what the stats are off the top of my head, but if you take them 2 out of it, we probably are looking at one of the lowest scorers in the league. Not probably one of the lowest, but we'll be down there around sort of like the lesser teams. Where are the goals going to come from, mate? Is it a problem? Just go back to Twin Cities Claret's points earlier. Is it a problem with the midfield? Is it a problem with the strike force? Is it a problem with the style of play? Is it a problem with the urgency? Or is it kind of just like a mixture of all of them points?
I think it's a very good mixture of all of them. I do think, and I hate putting pressure on players, but I do think Fleming will be the key this season going forward, because Foster is not out and out goal scorer. Like, he's had 2 seasons with us now where, I mean, I suppose the Championship one, he was on there for half a season, but he's never really looked like he's going to be a 20-goal a season striker for you. Whereas I feel like Fleming has had more time at this level and is more of a natural goal scorer than Foster is. And I think when you don't have him in the side, especially like you look at that Leeds game, I mean, it was his first game and he was holding the ball up. It looked so
it was class, weren't it? I do feel like we missed him yesterday.
Definitely. And I think Hannibal's, I don't know, I think Hannibal and Brownhill are very similar. And I think that's where the issue is for me. I think Cullen and Laurent can both sit back and defend and get forward and stuff. But I think Brownhill and Hannibal offer the exact same thing. But I don't think either of them are, how do you say? It's not a bad thing. It's just they're both box to box. But I wouldn't say either of them have an outstanding, I don't know how to explain that. But, you know, I feel like going forward, they're both okay. And defensively, they're both not the best. But I feel like if you play somebody like Fleming instead of Hannibal or Brownhill, which I think Brownhill's probably earned his place more than Hannibal has this season. I feel like Fleming just behind Foster, it's a very, very good attack that compared to Hannibal or Brownhill just behind. So I feel like that's the issue. And I feel like I feel like we've been very spoiled with having company, having these like attacking wingers that love to score goals. We don't really have that now. We've lost sort of that side of things because Benson's just not the same Benson from 2 seasons ago. And I think Coley Oshaw is still somebody that's very young. Is quite a raw talent. So I don't think he's a natural finisher. I don't think we actually have one at the club other than maybe Fleming. And I think that's going to be one of those things that throughout the season, I feel like it's going to get more and more frustrating that we don't have somebody that can just put the ball in the back of the net. But I think a lot of teams in the Championship are struggling for that. So I do think it's definitely more of a striker thing and the fact that probably our wingers don't contribute as much. But I'm hoping that it's the first few games with this new squad and that we're eventually going to adapt and find a system that really suits everybody and everyone blossoms hopefully together.
I can't remember the point. I think it was one of you three, obviously, because it was on the show. But it does feel like, I think it was you, Liam, it does feel like earlier in the VK days where we were drawing too many games, not creating enough. And even later in the VK season, there was still some games where we finished 0-0 against poorer sides, 2 teams that were relegated that year in Blackpool and Reading for a start. So I do feel like all this negativity on Twitter is a little bit much. I do agree. It's going to be interesting to see. I feel like we need a click day. And I remember us saying that quite a lot under Vincent Kompany. I feel like we need a click day in this new squad. Again, some people could caveat that by saying we clicked pretty much very well against Luton, against Cardiff. But let's be fair, it's a new side. And I don't feel like we've really clicked and found out a style of play that we do like. And Scott Parker himself has alluded to that. I just want to mention a comment because I'm going to go to Liam next. There's a comment here from Rick Williams. He says, "Evening, lads, great channel. Actually think we were a little better than the Pompey game. Think there were green shots. It will come hopefully from Liam's old graphics tutor." Do you remember Rick, Liam?
No fucking ways. Like, no, I'm not having this. This can't be Rick.
It must be Rick. Why would somebody lie? It's your old graphics tutor, mate. Say hello. How are you doing, Rick? You all right, mate?
How you doing, Rick, pal? That's unbelievable. That's made my night. Cheers.
I do quickly want to... Rick, hope you're well. Let us know what you're doing these days. I'm sure Liam would love to know. But I do quickly want to mention, because obviously I was talking about the goals. Sui has fantastically provided us with a stat. Again, you'll have to show me your statistics website, Sui. He says we would be the 19th lowest without the 9 at the start. So, Liam, are you worried about the lack of goals?
I don't really agree with that. Like, take out 2 complete games and like we're behind most of the league. Yeah, because we're missing 2 complete games.
It's a different team. Is my point from that. It's a different team.
I don't agree with stuff like that. But look, I think I agree actually a lot with the point that Hannibal and Brownhill are quite similar to each other. And also, I to that point that we had a lot last time round that I don't think Brownhill and Cullen really works well as a midfield. We saw that a lot in Premier League, and it works same thing here. They don't really. I don't think they complement each other well enough. And that's why, I would beg that we would have kept a Berg, but of course that's not possible. Also, one thing that I find is a big problem that you contrast to the company year 2 this year is that out from the back, we just are way too slow. And that's because CJ Riley, Humphreys are young lads. I don't think they got the confidence in them to really make those driving runs or to make those passes in a confident manner like how we used to. For example, with Jordan Bayer back in that previous time under company in Championship, the amount of times he just drove through an entire defensive line, that first phase of their press, he just walked straight through it time and time again. I don't think he ever got caught out, and these players don't have the confidence to do so. And that's not really their fault. They're still young lads, but that's most of the time that we have the ball is usually with our back 4 or back 3, really, just passing it side to side. And because they're still a bit on the edge, CJ Riley is still finding his feet realistically in professional, adult football over some time up in Scotland. He's not been playing football for a long time. So he's still trying to earn his trade. So is Humphreys as well. So you're going to see a bit of that kind of, teething in period. And I think that adds to a big part of why they're so slow to get the ball out wide. Mate, in that last 15 minutes, call your show. You was closer to, it was on your side. He must have been screaming the entire 15 minutes, just screaming for the ball to come to him. So by the time we're in an area to pass the ball to him, it's already too late because they just are too slow and they can't get the ball out to him in time. So he was just left stranded for most that second half, unfortunately, which is a shame because he's pretty much the only threat that we had came from him. And I've spoken to 2 or 3 Oxford United fans that said that, look, like that lad you got, the number 30, is absolute lightning. And both our main 2 chances with Sarmiento and Foster came from him. So yeah, that's what I think is a big issue, is just out from the back. We still got young lads that still needs to really grow their confidence. And I don't mind them. I think Humphreys and CJ Riley are both decent players, but they're still backup players at the end of the day. And that once a Warwick coming, but he's not really a passing player. Jordan Bayer, eventually, when he actually is alive, it'd be great to have him because he's unbelievable. And even a Connor Roberts would be a bit more ideal in that position because he's much more of a technical player. Humphreys, no issue with him because he's not even a right back. He's a centre half by trade. And CJ Riley is probably actually more of a right back by trade than he is a centre half. So that's a bit of an odd one right there. So that's one issue which I think is part of the problem of why we're not breaking his teams down that efficiently.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point, because I do remember saying on my reaction yesterday, I felt like we dictated the pace of the game, but the problem was that the pace that we were dictating the game at wasn't quick enough. And obviously, we need to move the ball quicker. We need to get it out from the back quicker. And that sets the tone, doesn't it? Getting the ball out from the back, that sets the tone. So I do feel like that the pace that we were playing at wasn't great. Comment on screen here from Matthew. He says, Hannibal and Brownell bring lots of energy. I agree they don't complement each other, but it fails in the final third. No target and nobody to link the midfield and forwards. It's an interesting debate, Andrew. I'm going to come to you first on this one. The midfield, because I did say yesterday, and I appreciate the Hannibal Medbury Fans Club is in the chat, and he says, don't you think Hannibal deserves to keep starting after being creative yesterday? I thought he was good yesterday, but I said what I said yesterday. I remember saying, I don't feel like they're his types of games, because he was playing in the 10 role more than anything. He was the highest midfielder forward. All right, the midfield can be quite fluid, and Hannibal will drop back and play in the box-to-box role, but he was starting the highest further forward than any other midfielder. I think, me personally, I would have Fleming in that 10 role behind Foster. I do want to see Fleming and Foster have a continued run of games before we all start digging out Foster and saying he's not good enough. But I would like to see them, because that's Fleming's natural position, or more so than it is Hannibal's anyway. With Hannibal or Brownhill in the box-to-box, because I agree with what you boys have said, they're all very similar. Then with Cullen or Loren in that sort of like DM role, or even Loren in the box-to-box. I wouldn't mind seeing that, because when he came on against Portsmouth, I thought he drove quite well as well, to be fair. So we have got some good options in midfield, but I just don't feel like it's clicking enough yet. I just don't feel like I don't think Hannibal's being utilised properly in that 10. I don't think that's his position. I think he deserves to be in sort of like the 8 role, like I said, the box-to-box. But there's so many different options there, isn't there, Andrew, in the midfield? And I don't feel like we've got it right yet. I just feel like yesterday the midfield was a little bit too slow for me, which is what Brian says here. He says, no movement in the midfield is why the defence or slow passing, players not finding space or players going into the save space. Having said that, to caveat that point, Brian, Koleosho, as Liam did say earlier, was in tons of space throughout the second half, but we just weren't quick enough at getting the ball to him. But anyway, Andrew, back to the point that I'm originally trying to make, is the midfield three. It's a bit of a conundrum, isn't it? And we don't particularly seem to be getting it right at the minute.
Yeah, we've got loads of options in midfield. Like you say, we've got Laurent, who I don't think's really put a foot wrong since we signed him. I think he's been absolutely brilliant. I think he was unfortunate to be dropped, but when Cullen's fit, you play Cullen. He's probably one of the best midfielders in the league. So yeah, it's difficult. I think. Look, we've all started to love Hannibal because of the shithouse that he is, and I think Chris mentioned this a few weeks ago, and he did get slated for it. But I think now quite a lot of us are starting to see it, and hold my hands up, I disagreed with him at the time, but he's not the complete player at the minute, Hannibal, and I think him, Brownhill, and Cullen, they just don't work together. Them three. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I'd potentially like to see maybe Hannibal coming on off the bench. I'd love to see Fleming in that role. He did really well against Leeds up front, holding the ball up. But like you say, that's his natural role, sitting in the 10. So I would like to see him playing that. But yeah, it's just not just the midfield. Everything's just slow, and that's why we're struggling to break teams down. Because, like you said, by the time we're getting it out to Koleosho or whoever's on the other wing at the time, it just seems to be they've managed to get everyone back. Everything just seems to be a little bit slow.
Yeah, fair enough. Claret Al says, one thing I've noticed is there is zero movement of the ball, so no surprise. We are passing it around the back as there are no options on for the pass. Connor, I feel like the midfield is a big debate at the minute. I feel like every single week I am asking the question on Twitter, which midfield three do you want? Which midfield players do you want? What would you do with the midfield, mate?
I think for me, I'd play Cullen and Laurent or Holding as a two, and I'd play maybe Brownhill just ahead of them if Fleming's not fit. I think the issue is that he wants to play. He's got so many good midfielders that he wants, especially at this level, that he wants to play almost all of them, but it's not working. So I think Brownhill's better going forward than he is defensively. So
yeah,
I would
agree
say
with that.
Brownhill just that bit ahead of the two in Holding, because Laurent can move the ball forward anyway, so he's got that in his locker, and Cullen is solid defensively, and he can also get forward. So I feel like it complements each other if you have someone like Brownhill just ahead of them, just so there's a bit more cover there, especially like if you've not got Fleming, because I think that's the issue, is that you've got too many that are box to box, and they're not like Cullen's more a defensive midfielder, whereas Laurent, Brownhill, Hannibal, they're all quite. You can go back and forth, but they're not outstanding at either. And I think for me, I think Laurent could do a really good job at holding with Cullen, and then Brownhill just ahead. And then if you've got Fleming for Brownhill is what I'd do personally. But saying that, you don't know how. I was speaking to my mate about this, about Laurent. I was like, I don't know if he's having a really good purple patch or if he's actually that good and he's just gone under the radar for all these teams. Because I feel like there's like almost this like, oh well, he's so good he needs to play. I worry that he's going to like go through a bad bit of form and people are like, well, he was really good at the start of the season. Why is he not now? And it puts more pressure on him. So I don't know whether that's why Parker's not playing him week in, week out yet. But so far he's been very good, and I would personally be starting him at the minute. But I just don't know. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes that he doesn't deserve to start over Hannibal and Brownhill, because I feel like he probably starts over Hannibal because he's offered more than Hannibal this season. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, I feel like the game against Portsmouth, for example, we were slow in possession. We made some changes. Laurent was one of them. Sarmiento was another one. And all of a sudden, we were 30, 40 yards up the pitch. Sarmiento, yesterday was an interesting one. I was surprised. Well, not surprised because he did well against Portsmouth. But I do feel like he's probably more of an impact player. That's when he did well against Portsmouth. But I do feel like him and Laurent dragged us 30, 40 yards up the pitch. against Portsmouth. Liam, I'll come to you on the same point rather than moving on. The midfield, what would you do with it? And do you agree with the points that we have a lot of players that are very, very similar?
Look, the entire time I've been listening to this, it just in my mind screams to me a fact that I've stuck with for a long time is that, well, I'll just say this: I really miss Johan Berg-Gudmundsson. I really miss him, and I said this even in Premier League and last time round. He's our best passer of the ball in terms of opening up a defense. He is our best player at opening up that final line in tight areas. He's got that killer edge. We are begging for that. We're begging for that. And I just don't know why we let him go, really, because that for me would be the answer to a lot of this. I think he's such a good passer on the ball. Playing at number 10, I think could be fantastic still at this level. Of course, he's no longer here. Hannibal is kind of similar to me as a Brownhill in terms of like, he's not really got a sole, like, clear trait that you know he's really good at. Cullen, we know, is a good dictator of play. And at number 6 row, he's a passer. You know what he's good at. He can start off the back and move the ball to better players. That's more technical, physical than him. Then there's Berg. You know he's a much more physical player. He's great at driving the ball through the midfield. Brownhill, we still don't really know what his main trait is, other than just being kind of okay at everything, decent at everything at this level. Hannibal could be also the same, probably a bit more of a technical player in terms of tricks and flicks compared to Brownhill, but he's not someone that really dribbles past someone, doesn't really shoot, and like he's not got that much pace to really drive forward. So it's a similar position. So in terms of playing as a team that we know we're going to have a lot of the ball, I don't think it's really necessary to really play a Laurent and a Cullen, because I don't think we really need 2 number 6s, 2 defensive-minded players. I think we could get away with doing what we did last time and having, I think it was Cullen with Brownhill as a number 10, and then we also played Johan back in the last company season. And instead of Johan, we could have maybe you could try Fleming there. I don't think he's a creative player. He's much more of a hold-up lad. So I just don't know who could be that Johan that can have that killer pass. I don't know who has that in our team. We do have a certain, 20 million pound player called Mike Trezor somewhere.
Yeah. I was muted then, but I did. Mike Trezor still to come off the bench. Could
you
he
probably
be
still
the key?
you probably know much more than me. Is he about? Is he in training? I have no idea about.
They've released pictures of him in training. He was even on a TikTok video last week. Scott Parker said in his press conferences that he's still working hard on coming back from this injury that they've spoken about, and his even match fitness, because whether it was an injury or not, he wasn't here doing the pre-season. So there is still him to come back into the side if he wants to come into the side. I do feel like Fleming could be that person. I do agree with the point that he's not as creative as a JBG or a Trezor. That is completely fair enough. But yeah, there's still Mike Trezor.
Also like Aaron
Ramsey in January.
Yeah, but he's not really a passer of the ball either. He's like a second striker more like. So Trezor is possibly a better shout, or maybe playing, I don't know, Sarmiento's a number 10 maybe, but I don't know. We need that person.
Because he's clearly a creative player with Sarmiento, isn't he? So that could be an option.
He's a dribbler. He's got great trickery, great feet.
Yeah.
It's just kind of you need someone who can take that risk, and I don't know if we have someone that can really do that right now. But we got great wide players that, in terms of Collier, that will put fear into any single back line in this entire league. It's just, can we get the ball fast enough to them so that they are not always in a 2v1 situation every single time? So that's something that Parker has to figure out. And look, we got Plymouth up next. They're going to try to do the exact same thing. So if we go play Plymouth and then we go play Preston and we end up with like 2 more draws, then maybe we can get a bit more concerned. But Oxford, as I said before, even when we were flying in the company, we still went to Blackpool and drew 0-0, and also drew 0-0 away at who's the team, Reading, that both went down. Yeah. So end of the day, sometimes games like this just does happen. So we could go smash Plymouth 3-0 and everything's fine. So that's why I didn't even say anything after the game on Twitter or anything, because I don't really care. We'll forget this game within a week. So that's where I'm at.
Well, fingers crossed we do smash them 3-0, mate. Go on, Andrew.
I hope so. Can I just throw a curveball in there talking about the number 10? Because obviously last season we had Ordbert on the wing and he got moved into the 10 role a little bit. What about potentially seeing Coley Oshaw in the 10? Because we know he likes to run at the defence. We know he likes to dribble past wingers, past defenders. What about
I think on the
Koleosho
base
in
of
the
it,
10?
it might work, but
And
then
then
we'll
you've
lose a
got-
lot of balance, won't we? Because I like Anthony's done okay, but I feel like when he comes on, we don't drive forward as much. Koleosho has done so well on the wing. I think it'd be silly to move him personally.
Koleosho, I don't think he does well in close, like tight knit areas, which is like when it's really condensed. I don't think he thrives in that personally. So I wouldn't say Koleosho. Is Nathan Redmond still here, by the way? What's going on with him? Is he still injured for till Christmas again, or how long is he out for, Redmond? I know he's injured, but
I think he's out for a while. Yeah, it was a cruise ship, weren't it? So I think he's out for a while. His cousin Nath. I don't think we'll see him soon enough.
Yeah, that's a shame.
But yeah, someone did say, to be fair, Claret Al, what about Ramsey and Redmond? So yeah, Nathan Redmond could potentially be an option. Obviously, we've mentioned Ramsey. I don't know if you missed it, Claret Al, but it's Connor. What would you do, mate? Like obviously, Liam spoke of Trezor. We've spoke of Ramsey. Like there is something that Scott Parker, needs to. Sorry, private joke. My little boy's there who's called Parker. Something that he needs to find. He needs to work something out, doesn't it? What would you do? What would you like to see him try? Because even Andrew's made a point of potentially Koleosho in the 10. Something needs to change, doesn't it? At the minute, I mean, Fleming could be that guy though.
I think for me, from this season, the only difference I'd say, I genuinely prefer Koleosho on the left than the right. I feel like Koleosho cutting in is more threatening than Koleosho trying to whip the ball in. I think for me, I would play Koleosho on the left. I don't know who the issue is with nobody that's outstanding on the right for me. That's the issue. So that's why I feel like Koleosho's out on the right, but I don't think it benefits us. I think his strongest position is left wing. I feel like when he's played on the right, don't get me wrong, he's way too good for this level, but he's somebody that I would say his strongest position's on the left. So then it's like, where do you play Trezor? Can Trezor play on the right? Who do you play that right side so that you've got a threat on either wing? I feel like at the minute, it's very much we either play it down the left to Anthony or whoever's on the left, or we try and get the ball to Koleosho as much as possible, but then Koleosho gets burnt out at 60 minutes because we keep passing the ball to him. So I feel like the wingers are the issue in some ways for me. Obviously, Foster dropping deep doesn't help, but I feel like the wingers situations where I feel like there's more of a problem for me, because you don't want to over depend on Koleosho, because say he does leave in January, which I don't think he will, or like leaves at the end of the season, you've put too much on him carrying you through games. But then I don't really get what your strongest pair of wingers is at the club at the minute, and I'm hoping that Trezor can come in on the right. I don't know if he's ever played on the right. I can't say I've watched a lot of the Belgium league, so
I think he was more left. I can't remember.
Yes,
I think he was more left.
I mean, it's another left winger, and it's Ramsey played on the left at times for Villa, and I feel like that's the issue you've got. You've got all these really good left wingers, but you haven't actually got anybody for the right, and that seems to be a bit of a problem area for us anyway. So I don't know. That's one thing I've noticed from these first couple of games anyway, that I feel like Koleosho's a lot stronger on the left than the right. That would be my main issue with wingers at the minute.
Yeah, we don't have as much balance as we would like, to be fair, at the minute. But again, the reason why I think Trezor is more of the left is I seem to remember Koleosho playing very well on the left in one game last season, but then somebody went off injured. It might have been Koleosho, actually. But I seem to remember Koleosho doing very well on the left, and then Company bringing him on, and then moving Koleosho to the right to try and shoehorn.
Was that
I might be getting him mixed up with Odebear.
Yeah, Forest away.
That Forest away?
Might have been. I don't know. I just remember a game where Company was desperate to put Trezor on the left, and then he moved somebody who was doing very well on the left onto the right, who then couldn't, get into the game as much.
Because he played. They played against that. Was it the Argentina right back? And he absolutely.
I mean, Sui says he's a right wing by trade. To be fair, Dallo.
No, who was it that played right back for?
It was Montiel, Argentine.
He got absolutely ripped apart by Koleosho.
Yeah,
that says a lot to me.
I'm pretty sure Trezor is a left winger for bad trade. Like everything I'm seeing here is he's left winger.
I judge it off FIFA FIFA stats, that's what it is.
What does FIFA and Football Manager say? It's not called FIFA anymore.
No, I'm just looking at his transfer market, silver score, like everything's saying left winger, and like I'm looking at his individual positions like Genk. But that's the thing. Like, I mean, Ramsey could be probably at number 10 as well, and then it's just Sarmiento could be almost like our Benson of this year, where like he's the super sub, gets subbed on with against fresh legs. Because Benson wasn't really ever started that much, even in that insane season, and just got subbed on, and just always was a massive threat. Sarmiento, I mean, that's why at Ipswich last year, he wasn't really starting much either at all. He was always a super sub, and he was that for Ipswich. So that could be a part of his game that he just can't keep it flowing for a full 90 or full 60, 70. So that could be a situation. I mean, I don't mind look at Anthony either. I don't mind him. I don't think I've seen enough of him, to really make a real decision. I guess same thing can be also for Sarmiento as well, to be fair. But he's got good feet. I do like the look at him.
He's got good feet. He's a bag of tricks. He makes things happen. And obviously, I've touched on it already, but I agree. I think him coming off the bench is better than him playing the full 90. I thought he played well, actually, against Luton. Probably didn't create enough as we would have liked, but he was in the game a lot. He was busy. But yeah, I think potentially having Anthony on for 60, 70 minutes and then Sarmiento with his bag of tricks against tired legs might be the way to go forward. Andrew, I'll come to you first on this one, and I probably will get all three of your thoughts on this one. I don't like to single out players, but I kind of feel like I have to because there's been a lot of comments on Twitter and in our chat now about Hontondre. When he first came in, I obviously knew nothing about him, but I did see him have a couple of cameos where he came off the bench, and he looked like a big physical striker with a lot of pace. I can't remember who we scored against. I think it was the fifth goal against Cardiff or the fourth goal against Cardiff, where he made the challenge in midfield, and then when whoever scored it, he was next to them because he'd made the challenge with good strength, and he had used his pace to get up the pitch. And I remember looking at him thinking, this guy's a physical player. He's going to be good for us. But to be fair, he's not really done much since. And there's been a lot of criticism of him in the chat. I think it's harsh criticism because he's come, to a new country. He's still bedding in and all that stuff. But he has sometimes looked a little bit, I think the best way of describing it is unorthodox. And obviously he had that chance where he couldn't adjust his feet or his body or whatever it was yesterday. Again, I've not seen it back, but it was pinged at him at some pace. But he just looked a little bit unorthodox, didn't he? And he seems to be getting a bit of criticism. What are your thoughts on Hontondre, please, Andrew?
Yeah, I feel like my thoughts on him have changed since 12 o'clock this afternoon. I was speaking with my dad about him, and I said he looks like a donkey who's won a competition to play for Burnley, but I feel like that's a little bit harsh.
Yeah,
I don't feel like. Now I've sat back and thought about it a little bit. We haven't seen a lot of him, and he had that cameo against Cardiff where he did look good, and then yesterday, yeah, exactly what Simon's saying. Yesterday, he came on off the bench. He missed a chance that he probably should have scored, and I'm sure he'll be thinking about that chance, till Tuesday. But we've not seen much of him. At the end of the day, he's obviously got goals in him. He might come on and score 3 goals this season. He might score 20 for us. You don't know. We need to see a bit more of him, I think, to make a full judgment. But I'd potentially like to see him start and maybe given a proper run of games rather than, a 10-minute cameo off the bench towards the end of the game when we're chasing it.
Yeah, I laugh then at the 20 goals a season comment, not because I think he's a donkey. I just don't think he's going to play enough to be scoring 20 goals this season. Put it this way, if Hontondre scores 20 goals this season, mate, I'll get my arse out in Burton's window. It's not going to happen. But again, that's not a reflection on him as a footballer, just more of how much I think he'll play and how much he'll be used. Connor, your thoughts on Hontondre, please, mate?
I question, and this is my thing, I question whether he was brought in as a J-Rod replacement. I think they were half expecting maybe J-Rod to go this summer, and they needed a striker as backup to Foster. He doesn't strike me as somebody that fits Parker's style of play or companies. It strikes me as more they probably were offered him semi-cheap, and they thought, well, we might potentially be losing Gerrard. We don't know what's going on with Foster. We need to at least have a striker through the door. And it strikes me more that he's not meant to be a starter for us. And I don't think particularly he was going to ever play as much as he has done. I think the Exodus and obviously that Sunderland game give him a chance. But I don't think any chance he's been given he's really taken particularly well. I don't mind him, and like you say, he's a Burnley player, so I'll back him, and I hope he does well. But he doesn't strike me as somebody that is meant to be playing as much as he is. And I think it's more that we don't have a second striker after Foster and potentially Fleming, because I think Gerrard is just that bit past it. But I love Gerrard. Gerrard gave me some of the best memories of my childhood, but I don't think either of them two are the best backup strikers. But I think Atonji just looks a bit lost, and I hate jumping on players because it's not nice. But he doesn't look at the level yet, does he? And I might be proven wrong, and he might score 20 goals. You never know. But I can't. It's one of those ones. You know, you see a deal that happens, and he plays a couple of games. You go, you're not going to cut it. I almost get that with him, and I feel like he's one of those. Who did we have? Chulinov was another one. I'd say he's very much a Chulinov vibe, where he comes through the door and you kind of like, I don't get where you fit, and then he doesn't fit and he goes out on loan and you never see him again. I feel it's a bit like that sort of deal, and I'd be shocked that if he's here next season that he's a starter or even close to that next season anyway. But for now, I'm going to obviously back him because he's a Burnley player and that's what you do.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't necessarily disagree, but I stand by the point of I think it's probably a little bit too early to be jumping on him. I'm not saying you did, by the way, just for the fan base of reaction. Just feel like it's a bit too early, which some people have just written him off already. Liam, your thoughts on Tondra, please, mate?
I mean, he's just barely even played. Like, he 6 minutes against Cardiff, 1 minute against Leeds, and then 11 minutes other day against Oxford. Of course, he started as a winger, as a left mid or left winger against Sunderland, which the entire team that game was a complete mess because we know what team he put out that day. And even Wolves midweek he played, and again, out of position. And if he's a big centre forward, a target man almost, playing him as a winger kind of makes no sense to me. So no surprise he doesn't do that well. But I think comparing him to the kind of Chulinov signing is actually really smart. I kind of see him similar in that kind of boat that
Connor's buzzing.
I swear he was signed. We signed him before we even announced Parker, did we not? Was he announced before we even signed Parker?
Yeah, was he not like the signing?
I can't remember. Was that not Sambor that we signed before?
Sambor, I thought it was both of them. It was one of the first ones that came through the door, obviously.
My memory's never been the best.
Yeah, it comes across like one that was kind of pointed out in the scouting system, and he's got some decent little stats, and that he's on the cheap, so just give him a go. And it felt like one of them, and it could be a factor that we didn't really know what happened with Foster or what's happening with J-Rod, so it's a case of, well, we got a guy that's on the cheap. So again, I mean, we've barely seen him, so it could just be a player that could be there for a backup, and that's completely fine if he is. So yeah, with him, I don't really care too much in terms of, like, I have no issue with him. I've seen a lot of people talk about Foster, about him, and I mean, I don't really think he's been as bad as what people make it out. It's just the fact there's this expectation that he was so good for like a couple of games early on back in Premier League, and there's this expectation that he has to deliver now because he is our now main number 9, and he's not bagged as many as we really would have wanted, and people start getting on him for that. So he had really one chance really.
Yeah, the one in the first
maybe
half.
2, like a half chance, but really one actual chance against Oxford. I think his hold-up play still really well. He uses physicality really well. He, so many times that I saw the ball just fall as like a second ball midfield, and he uses his physicality to just move the ball up the pitch. He did that countless times. I've noticed that. Like, I've had people on Twitter say that like he's not fighting for the badge and that he's down tools because he wanted out of the club and this and that. I think they're waffling personally. I don't think he's doing any of that. I think he's still fighting. I think that it just hasn't fallen for him yet, but I think it can. So I'll still continue to back him. I've still seen that he's still putting a shift in. It just hasn't fallen for him yet. I think maybe he's not going to be, I don't know, like a 20 goal season striker, but even when we last went up and won the league with 101 points, we didn't really have that kind of striker either. everyone chipped in. So you don't need a 20-goal season striker to run away with the league. So if we can get that click, as you said, like that Sunderland away game, then maybe it's just a factor of just waiting for that moment, because we went through something similar to this last time. So, again, Plymouth in 2 days, we could beat them 2-3-0, and everything's all fine. So,
what I will say first of all is I am shocked to hear that someone's waffling on Burnley Twitter. That is absolutely a shock horror. I'm surprised to see that. But what I will say on Foster is that I think it's been difficult for him because, as we've mentioned, there's been a few teams that are pressing us very, very high, not giving Foster sort of like any time. As soon as he's got on the ball, they're on him. And there's been some teams like Oxford that literally just 2 banks of 4 on the edge of the box. Blackburn did that as well. And it's difficult for a number 9 to get into a game like that. Just obviously the point where you said about everybody chipped in the Vincent season. We did. I think Teller was a leading goal scorer. Reece James has said that he scored 17. Probably some of them I can't remember. Teller was obviously the leading goal scorer. I knew that much. But one thing about the Scott Parker side is I always feel like they do have a striker. I think that'll be the difference between them. But I think it's harsh to criticise Lyle so far. But actually, Liam, I'll stick with you because you did mention then our next game coming up against Plymouth, and fingers crossed it's 3-0 and we win that. But a question that I did ask on Twitter today, I'm not sure if you saw it, is how many points, you probably can't even see that there actually, to be fair, but how many points is the absolute minimum that we should be getting in the next 2 games? And obviously, if you have good eyes,
I mean,
the screen says
it should be 6. It has to be 6, but I'll say 4.
I agree, but are you just sticking by that? Minimum is 6 if we want to be winning the league as champions.
I mean, you say that, but again, last time, I mean, won the league with 101 points. We drew at home to Stoke at this stage of the year, and Hull and whoever else, right, and Blackpool. So it's not like if we draw a game and win one, then like we're not Premier League or we're not promotion candidates. Of course we are, but against Plymouth, you really should be taking the win there. Against Preston, it's not a derby. It's a bit of a little mini rivalry that we have with them, but you'd hope that they'll be up for it. So minimum has to be 4. Realistically, minimum has to be a win and a draw, which is like, if we get 4 points, I'm not going to go mental. Because I genuinely, and this is maybe because I'm just, big-headed as a Burnley fan, as we're like a big team in Championship now, but like I cannot see a world where we don't get at least 4 points. I can't imagine a world. 3 could be the absolute worst. I can't imagine anything less than that. So, yeah, it should be 6, though.
Phil,
should be 6.
It should be 6, and I completely agree, mate. It has to be 6 for me. Like, not has to. I won't be going mental again, like you said, if we get 4. But if you bring the Oxford game into this, for example, and you look at Oxford away, Plymouth at home, Preston at home, say, for example, we draw against Plymouth and beat Preston, that's then 5 points from them 3 games. That's not enough from them 3 games. And again, just looking at them 2 games on their own merit, again, I don't really think 4 is enough. Yeah, you could look at them 2 games and say 4 is kind of enough on them 2, but when you bring the Oxford one into it, 5 out of them 3 isn't enough. So for me, it has to be 6. Phil says 6. Clara Owl says 6. Sui says doesn't have to be 6, but should be 6. Clara Owl says should have been 9, including Oxford. Problem is they will park the bus away to us. Claret and Blue 1882 says minimum 2 points, considering how we played it. If we get 2 points off that, mate, there will be absolute kittens being had. And Simon Moretti Maru says, if we have any ambitions of promotion, it has to be 6 points. Good to see.
But then we drew to Stoke at home this time last year, so it doesn't work like that sometimes. Sometimes you just get a draw.
Yeah,
it won't be like that. It should be 6, but sometimes shit happens, isn't it?
Yeah, fair enough. Connor, apologies for putting stuff over your face there. Some may say it's an improvement, but I disagree with them.
Yeah, no, it is. It's fine.
Sensational.
Andrew, what are your minimum points from this?
I think minimum, it has to be 3. If it's anything less, it has to be 3. If it's anything less than that, then I think the whole fan base will have an absolute meltdown. But it should be at least 4. I can't. I'm with Liam. I can't see us losing both of those games.
What would be the biggest meltdown if we lose to Plymouth or we lose to Preston?
Lose to Plymouth.
Preston.
Oh,
I say
okay,
Preston.
there you
I
go.
mean, maybe I'm showing my age again a bit, but I do dislike Preston, and if we lose against them, it will hurt me. It will annoy me.
Or lose to Wayne Rooney.
I'd quite like
I
Wayne
think-
Rooney, if I'm being honest with you. I don't dislike him. It would be a little bit embarrassing if we lost at home to Plymouth. Apologies to any Plymouth fans watching. There aren't any watching. But I dislike Preston, and it would hurt me if we lost to Preston.
Yeah, I think out of those two, if you offered me now, we can lose one and lose we can only win one of those and we have to lose the other, I would snatch your hands off at Preston, because I'm with you, Joe. I'm of that age where Preston were at, I hate Preston with a passion. There's only one team I hate more, and that's them lot down the road. But losing to Plymouth, I mean, again, no disrespect. They've done well. They've already beaten Sunderland. They've got a good win against Luton the other night. But they're a team that we're expecting to be down the bottom of the league. And if we want to win the league, emphatically, like we did last time, we can't lose to teams like that. So again, no disrespect to Plymouth, but minimum for me, it has to be 3 points, but it should be at least 4, probably 6.
I wonder if you have a counter of how many times this season so far we've said no disrespect to X, but
we are that team now.
Roof so far.
Yeah, we are that
I honestly
team.
hate saying it because we're still little Burnley in my head. We're still little old Burnley, and they're still the underdogs. But we're not anymore, and that's
we're not.
horrible.
I genuinely don't
amazing.
like that tag anymore. I know especially the older generation, I don't like that tag anymore. We've not been in the bottom 2 divisions since 1999, 2000. We are not little old Burnley. I don't like it. I remember when we beat United at Old Trafford, not to digress, Connor, I will come to you and get your opinion on the next 2 games. But I remember when we beat United at Old Trafford, I was listening to TalkSport or 5 Live on the drive home, and some guy rang up and went, for little old Burnley to go to Old Trafford and get a win, it's sensational. And I get the sentiment of it, but we're not that team anymore. Yes, we fell all the way down to the brink nearly. We came back. But for me, yes, we are small in comparison to these teams like United, but I don't think we're little old Burnley anymore. We are medium-sized Burnley.
Do you think Bournemouth fans still see themselves as little old Bournemouth as well?
I've never heard them say it, but I don't know any Bournemouth fans. So that they potentially see them as a smaller club. But I bet they don't go around saying, oh, little old Bournemouth have beat this team. Personally, I don't know. I bet Brentford are a similar size to Bournemouth, and I bet they don't say
Has anyone here ever met a Brentford fan, by the way?
No.
Do
they exist?
Only when we've played them at the turf. Only when we've played Brentford at Burnley. Apart
that
from
doesn't count, really.
I've never met one in. Oh, actually, no, I'm lying. Elliot from uni, he were a Brentford fan. Sorry, Elliot. He was one of them mature students when I was 18, 19, and he was in his 30s. And he used to say hello in the weirdest way. I think it's a London thing, but you're right, Elliot, mate. He'd be easy. What do you mean, easy? What does that meant to mean? He used to wind me up. But yeah, Elliot's a Brentford fan, but I've literally not spoken to him since university. So if you're watching this, Elliot, where have you been? You've missed a lot. I'm a father now. But yeah, easy, mate, if you are here. Connor, sorry, mate. Opinion on the next 2 games. How many points should we be getting?
So we have to win against Plymouth. That's you can't lose because it's on my birthday. So I would be really upset.
Happy birthday for Tuesday, mate.
My birthday. Thank you. So Scott Parker, if you're watching this, you can't lose that one. And I'll say this, and I always say this to my mates, and I don't know if they agree with me, but Preston are like the Middlesbrough to Newcastle and Sunderland, in my opinion, in terms of East Lancashire.
That's a fair.
And I find them really
Analogy?
irritating because one of my old managers at work is a Preston fan, and he talks about how they're always going to be they're not far off challenging and stuff. And I kept saying, you'll drop off and you'll have a bad season like they are now, and they'll fall away. But they annoy me to Preston more than I hate them. It's more they're an annoying team because they try to be involved with this whole Blackpool Preston derby. It irritates me more than anything. But we have to win that as well. So I could accept 4, but I do believe we have. It is an awful thing to. You have to sort of get 6 if you want to be challenging because they're both at home. They're both lower down the league. They're the teams that you have to be putting away. Definitely.
Exactly that. I'll stand by the fact that it should be 6, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I take Liam's point on board that yes, we did we were drawing at this stage of the season. But that Oxford is that draw for me. Anyway, it's got to 7:30. I do need to start wrapping it up soon. There's one thing we haven't discussed yet. And Liam, I'll start with you. And please get your comments in, everybody. I will put them on screen.
I'm scared.
Man of the match shout. It's just man of the match, mate. Just man of the match.
I got so paranoid and thinking if I missed a comment or something. Okay.
No. Man of the match shouts, please.
No idea, mate. I had no idea. I think Esteve had some really good moments in the game. I thought he was really good. Oh, God. I'll probably give it to Koleosho just because he's the only one that really made any actual real chances in that game and looked like he was our biggest threat. So I'll give it to Koleosho because he made the 2 best chances in the entire game.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think a lot of people on Twitter yesterday were giving it to Koleosho. Connor, your man of the match, please, mate.
I think you could give it Koleosho. I'm going to give it to Steve for that tackle because that was like an unbelievable challenge. And I feel like if he gets that wrong, it's a penalty and we lose 1-0. And there's even more of a meltdown on Twitter. So he saved us a very nice evening of hearing people whinging. So I'd say Steve for me, just for that tackle alone, it was superb.
Yep, fair enough. Andrew, man of the match, please, mate.
I'd probably agree, Steve. Thought he played well. He's always playing well. He's probably my most obvious choice because there were no one else really. Other than that, Koleosho, he was probably our most creative player, but there was no end product. So I think it's got to be Steve.
Yeah, for me, I said it yesterday on my fan reaction. I went early with this. I went Steve, so you can check it out. I'm not just following the crowd. I thought he was fantastic. I'm surprised to see on who scored. He didn't get a high rating. It was like 6.8 or something. Maybe some of his passes were a little bit misplaced. I'm not so sure if they were. I can't remember off the top of my head. But as a defender, he was class. And yeah, that tackle at the end. I think I tweeted at the time saying, tell you what, it's a good job we've got Steve because that was a brilliant tackle. I've not seen it back since, but that was fantastic. And he is, I stand by it, one of, if not the best defender in the Championship. I absolutely love the guy. He's brilliant. But keep your comments coming in for the man of the match, although we will be wrapping the show up very, very soon. Chris Hyam says Luca. Clara Al says Steve. Reece James says Esteve. Man of the match, Koleosho did well as well. Excuse me. Sui says Steve. Everyone else was stinker. Scott O'Sullivan said Trafford kept a clean sheet. He did.
Yes.
Mistakes to me.
Let's go.
Yeah, didn't have any mistakes to be fair. Clarence Blue 1882 says man of the match, the car park stand. It's not a stand.
Second at season.
Yeah. Andrew's here. Car park stand. Andrew, I think your internet's going a bit dreadful, mate. But yeah, it's not a stand. Twin Cities Clarets says Steve. Whenever there is an obvious choice, always go with Steve. Fair enough. The Hannibal Medrig Fans Club has gone for Koleosho, not Hannibal. Fair enough. Understandable. That is a shock, though, to be fair. Steve says, Simon says Steve, not Steve.
Steve says Steve.
And David Gill, or Gill, however you want to pronounce it, says, how did Egan Riley do? He did okay, mate. I thought he did okay. He looked better at centre-back than he did at right-back, which is bizarre because I think he's more of a right-back, as Liam said earlier, but I thought he looked okay yesterday. But is there anything else quickly, lads, that you want to discuss before we wrap it up?
No, we can forget this game ever happened, and then we'll score beat Plymouth. That's the plan.
That's fair enough. Well, like you've said several times already, Liam, if we beat Plymouth 3-0 on Saturday, this will all be forgotten about.
It all goes downhill if you actually get another draw, like a 0-0 draw against Plymouth here, or 1-1.
Yeah. I will not be logging into Twitter if we do draw against Plymouth because it will be an absolute cesspit, just like it always is. But yes, if you've joined the stream late, I always say this at the end of the stream, so you probably do know by now, but in case you're new, if you join the stream late and you want to watch it back when I press end stream, you can do that because it turns into a standalone video on YouTube. Or if you just think you want to listen to the podcast tomorrow morning, you can do that as it will be out as a podcast. Probably in a few hours, but it'll definitely be there for your commute to work, college, university, school, whatever it is in the morning. And the pre-game show as well, it's already recorded. I just haven't released it yet. And I have a Plymouth score prediction in that, Claret. I go for 1-0. So yeah. But yeah, we'll be asking what people's opinions are on Twitter for that. But yeah, the pre-game show for Plymouth will be released probably tomorrow lunchtime. So you can drive to work, university or school or whatever it is, listening to the full-time show, and you can drive back listening to the pre-game show for Plymouth. Or you could just wait until Tuesday morning, whenever. But yeah, thank you, Liam, for coming on the show. Always appreciate it. Liam is a very busy man. Connor, is this the first time you've been on the full-time show? I know I think you've done it. Is it? Yeah, you've done the fan reactions.
Yeah, the first debut.
Did you like your debut, mate?
Yeah, the internet didn't cut out, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
It was nice. I've enjoyed this, and I wanted to do it for a while, so it was nice.
Yeah, well, no, I'm glad you've enjoyed it, mate. And let me know in the comments how you thought Connor did, because we did have Dan making his debut a couple of weeks ago, and he was very good. And due to the fact that Chris is a new dad, Neil is a new dad, Sam's out either skydiving or lying to me, depending on who you believe. It's always good to have people that are readily available to step in. And I really do appreciate that, Connor, because you've been fantastic. And Andrew's always here. Andrew, time of day, no matter what, Andrew's available. So thank you, Liam. Thank you, Connor. And thank you, Andrew. It's been a pleasure. And we will hopefully try and do a full-time show after the Fulham game. I'm not Fulham. Where the fuck have I got Fulham from? After the Plymouth game. I'm not sure who will be available. It'll even be tough for me to do, to be fair. So we'll see. We'll see. We might not do one. We might do one. But yeah, thanks everybody watching. Thanks everybody for listening. And we will see you next time.